Hi guys, Matt Lemke here, and this is the post-Gen Con show video. Made it home safe. I am not sick. This is allergy related from the storms, the pollen that came in from the Great Plains. Being back in Ohio, temperature drops. It's affecting my eyes, my sinuses. That's about it. So, Gen Con this year was a really good show. And I think it's one of the things I think is interesting about Gen Con is a lot of us that go to a lot of different conventions or have been going to conventions that are seasoned, we don't call Gen Con a convention. We call it a show. Because even though we're going there to do work and stuff, it's still amazing. It's like a movie. I had a lot of fun. I always look forward to Gen Con because I get to see people that I don't normally get to see throughout the year, like Brian Steele, Jason Hardy, John Helfers, a lot of the authors like Jen Brozek that I respect and look up to, who have taught me a lot of things. Ross Thompson over at Atomic Mass Games now. Chris Birch, who I didn't get to talk to this year, kind of bummed out about that. But a lot of people from across the pond. This year was a little bit strange because a lot of the things that I wanted to do and the people I wanted to hook up, they actually weren't at the show. So I attempted to schedule like 25 interviews, and over 7 of them I couldn't actually do because the people that I was going to interview didn't make it. And that's probably why they were never actually confirmed. They didn't want me to leak that they weren't going to be there or something like that, or they were just too busy. I know in the case of Cubicle 7, some things happened internally, and Dom couldn't get over, so I didn't get to chat with him. I didn't actually get to talk to Will Schick this year, which kind of was a bummer. I knew I wasn't really going to get, with Atomic Mass doing their mini extravaganza so close to Gen Con, I didn't think I was going to get an interview. But I actually didn't even get to say hello to the man. And that's really a bummer because he's a very approachable guy. I did get to hang out with Kevin Ciambietta and Sean Roberson from Palladium Books for a bit. And, you know, one of the things that I don't know who I was talking to about it, but it was my wife was there, Lisa, and I was with a couple other designers. And the show has changed so much since I started attending. I remember, things like miniatures all used to be in the same hall, or one of the biggest changes actually is you have all those little rooms off the exhibit hall now. They almost all belong to or are space taken for exclusively for companies. Like Free League had their own room over there. Renegade Games had a room over there, plus space in the hall. I remember when I first started going to Gen Con, I was going as a judge for Magic the Gathering and for WizKids. And it was really kind of phenomenal to go into a hall and have the whole hall just be one thing. Kind of like, well, Paizo still does it. They take the ballroom for Pathfinder. And I think Starfinder's up there too. But I remember Upper Deck brought in the Batmobile for their Versus events, and it was on display. And I remember the hall now that has board games and miniature games in it was all card games every year. That's all it was. Magic the Gathering took up probably 2/3 of it, and that's just one of the ways it's changed. Another thing that's changed is the way people use their phones. It's almost becoming inbred. Like, inbred? That's not really the right word. But something that you expect. People are walking around with their phones. You never used to get that. And that's new, and that's a lot more relevant, I think, since 2018. I've seen that change a lot more, and I've seen a lot more people with strollers, a lot more people with like luggage bags pushing around. And one thing that I will note that since I started coming to Gen Con that I have seen is it's much more of a family destination. And that part is actually really, really cool. Sometimes I feel for the kids in the strollers, but I think it's really neat that mom and dad are bringing their kids, especially the ones that can play games, and they're making it a family vacation. When Lisa and I were volunteering for WizKids and Magic the Gathering or Wizards of the Coast, we couldn't actually bring our kids with us, so we had to find somebody to take care of them for the week. Fortunately, my mom and dad were able to do that for us, and that allowed us a lot of things. Highlights to the show. So, Renegade Games recently re-released the Heroescape IP. And I think that maybe that might have been the release of the show. Nothing compares to what Lorcana was last year that I can recall. I think Starfinder 2 was a pretty big ordeal for the role-playing side of things. And on the miniature side, there really wasn't anything that was like this. And I think some of it is to the industry has shifted. Adepticon's getting big enough that most of your miniature companies are going to focus on Adepticon. So you're not going to see as much miniature stuff at it. Oh, but that is one thing that actually kind of annoys me. I was very annoyed to find out that Privateer Press's events were in the stadium, Aerodrome's events were in the stadium, Flames of War were in the stadium, and instead of with other miniature games. I really am a firm believer that the miniatures, the genres, I mean, pretty much need to be together. With that said, there are certain difficulties. Like, I mean, if I like to play, I like the idea that in the hall, things are still broken down by company. I'm not saying, you know, just have it all like open space. And that actually kind of brings me to another point. I kind of think that there's not as many independent GMs at Gen Con anymore. Maybe somebody can actually throw that out there for me. I really don't know. But all in all, this is actually one of the best shows that I have done for Gen Con. I am a little disappointed in myself, but I think it's just because weird things happened before the show and I didn't get enough scheduled. But me only doing like 10 videos this year instead of 15 to 20 freed me up to do some things that I wouldn't normally do, like Writers Symposium stuff, which I do need to do stuff for me while I'm there. I just have to find the right balance. I wouldn't have played Warcrow. I probably would not have eaten as much food as I did. And I would not have actually had enough time to do things like film the Rifts panel on what's coming up down the road from Palladium. Anyway, guys, that is my Gen Con recap. I'm going to do a couple more videos on Warcrow and food, and that's probably going to be the end of my Gen Con coverage this year. I do not know if I'm going yet next year. It's going to depend on my job and my role and how I make things happen in the blog. One thing I'm noticing this year is interviews aren't as well received as they used to be. Not really sure why. But the panel for Riffs, it's blowing up. It's actually one of my best videos. And maybe it's just because it's Sean and Kevin chatting about what's going on. Anyway, thanks. Have a great day.